So without further ado, we would like to kick off with introductions, and we will start with Andre Peliquin.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Andre Peliquin. Thank you all for coming out today. Wow, I'm looking around this room and there's so many faces out there. We are one involved 48th Ward. Wow. Thank you so much. Again, my name's Andre Peliquin. Thank you very much. Can everybody hear me now? Perfect. Thank you. My name's Andre. I'm running for alderman of the 48th Ward here in Chicago because I've lived here for just about 10 years now. I've been both a renter as well as a property owner. Professionally, I am a real estate agent here in the 48th Ward as well as up and down our city. I've seen over the years that how pragmatic politics works versus just how pragmatic politics works here in the city of Chicago. We currently have an alderman and his team that have done a decent and great job over the years. We can build upon that. However, we do need to continue that legacy of pragmatic politics here in the city of Chicago. I am a lifelong Democrat myself. I am here in the Margate Park uptown of the ward is just near the southern border of the 48th Ward. So I'm running because I want to see a reduction in our crime, reinvestment in our public safety, as well as the environment and small business and local business community is near and dear to my heart as a residential realtor. I see how we have, over the years, during pandemic, had basically our commercial corridors are really hurting right now, and that's one of the many reasons I'm running. So thank you today, and I appreciate your time.
Is Nick Ward. I'm the son of 2 unionized public school teachers. Shout out to school teachers, absolutely. For the last 4 years, I've worked at Young Chicago Authors, which is an arts organization that teaches creative writing, spoken word, and hip hop to young people across Chicago. And I saw there the need to really invest in our youth. Whether it's art or athletics or robotics or chess programs, we need to create safer spaces for youth to pursue their passions in a productive way. I got really activated here in the 48th Ward at the height of the pandemic, when I organized with the Uptown Buena Park Solidarity Network, delivering groceries and other resources to seniors and working families in our community. That winter during the polar vortex, we got cash to our unhoused neighbors along the viaduct so they could get a hotel room. I also joined the 48th Ward Neighbors for Justice, an independent political organization where we hosted thoughtful, engaging, occasionally difficult conversations about police accountability. And I'm the current secretary and community representative on the Gowdy Elementary Local School Council, where I work with LSC members and staff to really understand how rising unaffordability was impacting families in our community. That put me in relationship with LSC members around the ward. And this work demonstrates my qualifications to be our next alderman. I really believe that we need to make sure we're getting resources, especially to people who need them the most. And I have a deep understanding of city policies that get set downtown but that impact every person in every neighborhood around Chicago. And I have the values to make sure that we are helping our most vulnerable neighbors. So thank you so much for being here.
Can everyone hear me? Yes, okay. My name is Nasir Faulkner. I'm running for alderman in the 48th Ward to build on our community strengths and bring a back to basics approach to constituent services. We live in a community where, frankly, I think we can say we have access to everything we need to survive here, right? We have access to good public schools, we have access to grocery stores, public transportation, entertainment, physical activity, right? So my intention is to be an alderperson who is going to make sure that all of those things are equally accessible to all of the residents in our ward. Constituent services, thank you. Constituent services is the main job of any alderperson, right? When you call my office because you need an extra garbage can, when you call my office because there are branches down on your street, my job is to make sure that my staff and city agencies are out there and doing the work on behalf of all of you. So three quick priorities that I'm going to have as alderperson. One is going to be public safety, right? That's the talk of the town, that's the talk of Chicago. For me, there's got to be a balanced approach though, because we can't continue to think that we're just going to lock people up and that's how we're going to solve all the crime. So I think, yes, we need to focus on reducing carjackings and armed robberies, which have increased in our ward. But we also need to work on anti-poverty measures at the city council level. There are a lot of people who are struggling economically, and if we don't get to the root of that, nothing we do will solve crime in our city. Public school funding is going to be really important for me because that's where we're going to get our young people engaged, having opportunities ready for the future, and not seeing a life of crime or a street life as a way to succeed. And then last is definitely going to be affordable housing. I'm a renter. We need more affordable housing options. I myself am getting priced out, so I think we need to focus on those three issues, and that's how we'll be able to build a community where we all love to call home. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Andy Peters. I've been a resident small business owner in Andersonville for nearly a decade. I grew up in Berwyn, where I went to Warren West Public High School, the worst funded public high school in suburban Cook County. And then the University of Chicago on an Odyssey Scholarship for underprivileged students. After college, I worked in the Chicago mayor's office with the city council team. That's where I got my first experience seeing how laws were written, seeing the difference between the ineffective and the effective aldermen and how they were able to navigate the bureaucracy to bring results to their constituents. Then I worked for the Illinois Restaurant Association, once again helping to write laws, many of which are very important in the city, the mobile food truck ordinance, and most importantly in 2013, when Illinois was forced by the appellate court to write a concealed carry law. The state law that was passed did not allow restaurants to bar concealed carry weapons in them, even if they sold alcohol. So we worked very hard with a huge coalition of stakeholders so that in the city of Chicago, all restaurants that serve alcohol, even if it's incidental to the rest of the activity, ban concealed carry weapons. I opened up True North Cafe in 2016 in Andersonville. We are known for our smoothies and creative lattes. Have the Trumpkin Spice Latte, huge orange and tax-free, in 2016, donating all the profits to charity. So I'm a small business owner and with my experience working with the city council, that's why I want to be the next alderman.
Last time I was here, it was in 2016, and there were 1,000 of us, and we were standing with my representatives, Jan Schakowsky, Carol Ronan, Heather Staines, and Kelly Cassidy, and we're still doing the work today, so thank you all for being here today. My name is Lenny Manaugh Hoppenworth. I'm running for 48th Ward Alderwoman. Election day is February 28th, and as you can imagine, my name will be the longest on the ballots. I'm a 24-year resident in the ward, a 20-year small business owner, and my ability to make executive decisions for my small business, but also collaborate with other small business as a member of the Chamber of Commerce, puts me in a unique position to work for the betterment of all of us. I'm also a licensed physical therapist, and I've worked with many different kinds of health professionals, administrators, and I know how to navigate complex healthcare systems for the benefit of patients so they can get the continuity of care that they need. Right now, we're still trying to navigate pandemic times. We need to house people, bring Chicago home, housing first, then bring supportive services, including healthcare, mental health supports, job training, domestic violence supports for people who are survivors, and we need to focus on our schools. I sat on the LSC at Jones, and LSCs are the most hyper-local form of a democratic government. If we just listened to the conversations that are happening there, we would all do better. I'm running for 48th Ward Alderwoman to represent all the interests in this community and for equity for all. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, honey. My name is Isaac Freilich Jones. I'm an Edgewater resident, an assistant Illinois Attorney General, and a local volunteer. While I was born right here on the far north side of Chicago, my presence in this race is unlikely. When I was 17, I was diagnosed with cancer. I made it through because of a community that rallied around my family, because I was lucky enough to have health insurance, and through the determination of my single mom. That experience left me with a lifelong commitment to giving back. So after graduating from the University of Chicago, instead of taking Wall Street job offers that came my way, I came back here to Edgewater with the vision that a life well lived is a life of service. I work as an advisor to nonprofits, to government agencies, and philanthropies, with them spearheading community engagement efforts focused on sustainable economic development, and helped lead programs that placed hundreds of people in new jobs during the Great Recession. But because I saw that even the best of intentions too often fall short, I enrolled in Harvard Law School to study what it takes to build just and equitable communities. Returning after graduating Harvard, I got involved locally. I volunteered stocking the shelves early on Saturday mornings at Care for Real. And as a nonprofit leader, I helped bring millions of dollars of essential services to the far north side. Finally, as an assistant Illinois Attorney General, I've kept Illinoisans safe by fighting to keep dangerous firearms off of our streets. I'm running for alderperson because we need experienced community-centered leadership to keep us safe, to revitalize our commercial corridors, and to make sure that we navigate a changing economy and a transforming city. Thank you so much for being with me here today, and I'm excited to share my vision for a 48th Ward. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Larry Schwabach, and I'm running to bring independent, progressive leadership to the 48th Ward. I am a researcher and educator at the University of Chicago in political science and critical race and ethnic studies, and I'm a volunteer and engaged community member in our neighborhoods. I've spent my life studying and working in politics because of my mom. She was originally a school teacher, and she ran for school board when I was 10 years old. And she was fighting to expand music and arts education in our schools. She ended up having to call out her colleagues for violating transparency laws, and she received death threats because of that. And I remember being a 10-year-old and being really kind of unsettled and scared about that experience. And in that moment, she really taught me that for our democracy to thrive, we need leaders who are going to stand up, be courageous, and do the right thing, even when it goes against what other people think. I've brought that energy to city politics the last 7 years, working on public safety and police reform. I organized with the grassroots coalition known as CPAC, and when we realized that we needed a broader coalition to win, I served on negotiations and brought other groups under our umbrella. That formed the Empowering Communities for Public Safety Ordinance, and I steered that through city councils through our city council with neighbors, and created the first civilian oversight of police in the history of Chicago. We have a really exciting election in February where we need to not only elect someone who can maintain constituent services and make sure that our neighborhood has responsive leadership, we need to send someone to city council who's going to hold our government accountable, stand up to the mayor, and make sure that we're getting what we need. I'm running to be that leader. Thank you.
Thanks. I'm Brian Hogg, founder of Green Element Resale on Broadway, 36 years Chicagoan, 12 years here in Edgewater. And I'm about to go radically off script. You can look at my website if you want to know more about my positions, but I echo everything about increased public safety. If you look around this room, what do you see? You see love. Love of this community, love of each other, all these people, all this energy. When I first heard that Harry was retiring, I thought, oh, I got this. You know, a lot of people love my store. I love all these people. I've worked with some of these people for a decade. A little while later, I find out some of those people are supporting Joe Dunn, people that I totally adore and have worked with for a decade. What just assumed would be in my camp. And it didn't stop my love for them and the adoration of them one iota. And then to meet Joe and Jennifer and how gracious and wonderful they are, it just made me feel that much safer. So, like I said, if you'd like to know more about my policies and positions, check out my website. There's a lot there. Is that my time? Or, oh, I thought I was done. Okay, I've got more time. And then another person up here is actually the reason why I'm running, which is Nick Ward, because one of his organizers, I tried talking to him about how important parking and a loading zone is for my business. I know because I built the business from scratch, you know, with starting and saving a dilapidated building. And it was like talking to a brick wall. They were like, no, it's better to get cars off the road than to sell used couches from the North Shore to people who live on the south and the west side. I don't agree. And this is where we are. Thanks, everybody. Love you all. Thanks for being here.
Hi, my name is Roxanne Volkman, and I am thrilled to be here today. Thank you. I have lived here in the 48th Ward for the last 25 years. I went to Loyola, I purchased a house, and I've raised my own family here. I believe so much in the strength and the future of my community, this community, that I just moved my 85-year-old mother a block away from my house. I wanted to make sure she was closer to us, but also I wanted her to be in a community that absolutely thrives and cares about each other. I have 30 years of experience in the federal government. I was the director of constituent services for Senator Mosley Braun in the 90s. I'm a federal expert in housing, urban development, and actually fair wages. I have built relationships with agencies and with departments that serve this community, and I have the experience and knowledge to tap into funding that is often overlooked. This is a critical time for Chicago. We just don't feel safe. I don't feel safe. My neighbors don't feel safe. Property taxes are too high. Rent is too high. When we walk outside, we see building after building of empty storefronts. I will bring back a thriving community. I will work to bring back beat patrol officers, which we so sorely miss. I will work with our police officers and create community dialogue, safety through smarter hiring, better training, and clearer accountability. I will make sure that we have sufficient mental health resources, both for our community and for the officers that serve us. We also need affordability. I will work to keep our long-term residents on fixed incomes in the residences that they've called home for so long. They need to be a part of our community. They need to stay here. I will do so through better budget management and introducing new streams of funding. I will be a fierce voice for all women. As alderman, I will bring together residents to discuss issues affecting us before the decisions are made behind closed doors. It is time for us, and I promise to restore the public trust. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Joe Dunn, and Brian, I appreciate your kind words. When I look around the room, what I see is passion. And that's why I'm running for alderman, because I have a passion for our community. I have a passion for the people who live here, for our schools, for our small businesses, for the community spaces like the Broadway Armory that we're in. I was born and raised right here in the ward. I grew up down the street on Glen Lake. I'm the third generation of my family to live in the ward. My children are the fourth generation, and I'm raising my family with Jennifer in the home I grew up in. So my parents bought that house in 1972. It's been our family home ever since. I stayed in the ward when I went to college. I got my MBA from Northwestern's Kellogg School, and I lived right here on Norwood, working during the day and going to school at night. I stayed in the community because I have that passion, and I've been involved in the community. I've lived that. I've been involved at Pierce Elementary School for the last dozen years or more. I passed petitions to save the Broadway Armory in the 90s as a Park District facility. I served on the Edgewater Community Council. By trade, I'm an affordable housing developer. I stayed in the city to improve lives across the city. I'm the Vice President of Real Estate Development for Bickerdike Redevelopment Corporation. I've worked across the city from Woodlawn to Lawndale to West Garfield Park, Humboldt Park, Logan Square, Uptown and Edgewater. I've built housing to improve the lives of people in all of those communities. And to do that, I know that you have to work with the community, with the elected officials, and with all of the government agencies that touch any sort of public work in the city. I've worked with every single city agency there is. If I can name them all, I don't have the time. I've worked with the federal government and I've worked with the state government. I know how to get it done. And what I want to do is bring that passion right back here to our ward, to my community where I grew up, and serve the community to make it a better, safer place for all of us, for everyone, for the diversity across the ward. Thank you.
So one of the reasons why Uptown Chamber of Commerce and Uptown United partnered with Edgewater Chamber of Commerce and Andersonville Chamber of Commerce is because we have a passion for economic development in our commercial corridors. Small businesses are the heart and blood of our neighborhood. So we're going to start the conversation today with economic development. Reminder, each candidate gets 1 minute to respond. So the first question, candidates: storefront vacancies can diminish the vibrancy of our commercial corridors. What factors do you believe contribute to these vacancies, and what steps would you take to address them? Andre, we'll start with you.
We here in the 48th Ward have a vibrancy of local and small business owners here, whether you're along Clark Street, Bryn Mawr, Thorndale, or my neighborhood down in Argyle. There are a multitude of businesses of not just diversity in race, but also diversity in restaurants, diversity in housing. At the commercial level corridor, it is difficult to open up a business, especially since pandemic has started. We have a myriad of storefronts that do need help. Local businesses should be able to I want to be able to cut red tape, be able to have, if there is a storefront that has been vacant for years, they should no longer be able to have the vacancy credit given to them as well, which is basically keeping it underutilized and unopened to the general public and our people. So that's one of the many things that I do believe in small and local business, and want to be able to see that continue to thrive, because that is what the heart of our economic engine here is in the 48th Ward. Thank you.
So a lot of our business corridors have been really hit by the coronavirus pandemic, by the red line construction, by 25 years of Amazon decimating storefront retail. And like Andre said, a vacancy fee where we're working on city council with our small business community, with property owners. And we need to distinguish between property owners who are unable to fill vacant storefronts because of lack of demand, versus those who are keeping them deliberately vacant because of the tax rebates that we receive. And we can use those fees to put into other projects in our ward. So I want to work with the Department of Planning and Development, utilizing those fees, open space impact fees, and other funding mechanisms to build beautiful public spaces from which economic development can flourish. Thank you.
So yeah, I'll agree with Andre and Nick. I think the main reason why we've seen so many vacant storefronts is because of the pandemic. So while that has created all these vacant storefronts, I think that also gives us an opportunity to bring in new businesses. So I will focus on bringing in small businesses that are looking to be a part of our community for the long term, and not corporate chains who want to add another Warby Parker or the McDonald's or Taco Bell, right? I think we need to have businesses that are going to thrive here, where people can bring their families, live here, and make a living. I'll also say that the biggest thing that I'm going to work on is technical assistance. Businesses need to be able to have the resources to know how to navigate city bureaucracy, And I'm going to ensure that my office is providing as much assistance as possible so we can get a business from point A to point Z, and so that we can start filling in these vacant storefronts sooner rather than later. Thank you.
The number of vacant storefronts is simply alarming. In Andersonville, I don't remember seeing so many in the 10 years since I've been in the neighborhood. And it's even worse, I think, on Broadway, where a lot of developers are speculating on future development and taking the tax breaks that they get for having their vacancies. So what we need to do is, for one thing, end the tax breaks that they receive for having vacant storefronts. Also work with independent landlords. There's a lot of them in Andersonville, I know, that don't quite know how to market their spaces, and then realtors are holding out. They don't want to deal with small businesses. They're holding out for chain restaurants or chain businesses, which is just salt in the wound. And as a member of the Andersonville SSA, we need to keep doing facade programs where we help landlords get the money they need to fix up their facades and bring in tenants.
One in 4 businesses closed during the pandemic. As a small business owner, I have seen my neighbors close up shop for many different reasons. The hardware store right next to me, when they retired, it was like a sad morning of seeing them go away. The Swedish bakery, the shoe repair shop too. We want long-term small businesses to survive. We want to increase the number of small businesses that are in our ward, and there are many reasons why people leave. There are also many reasons why landlords keep their storefronts empty. But we need to find ways to disincentivize them from keeping those storefronts empty, and to help them realize how they can be good partners for the entire community just by filling their storefronts with anything activity. I look to what's happening on Bryn Mawr with the Edgewater Bryn Markets, and they're bringing up pop-up shops. This is something that we need to encourage throughout the ward. As I said, it's a public safety issue too. We want vitalities in our corridors, and I would point to the Chambers of Commerce who do that every day, as they are the liaison between the city and our neighborhoods and our small businesses for neighborhood business development. Thank you.
So the 48th Ward loves its independent small businesses. That's what we want, but there are at least 5 factors that are combining to make this more challenging. The pandemic, changing shopping patterns driven by Amazon and similar online retailers, cost inflation that's been hitting all of us, red line reconstruction, and the same safety concerns that have impacted so much of the neighborhood. Now, some of those may seem like big global forces, but there's still a lot we can do right here in the community to make a difference. So let's work with the Chambers of Commerce and industry groups to support our retailers and our restaurants in particular that have faced so many challenges. Let's make sure that we fix up the red line on schedule in 2025 so we can bring back Berwyn and other areas of the neighborhood that have been impacted by that. And finally, let's bring back foot patrol officers to be stationed in our commercial corridors, whose names they know, whose faces they recognize, who they can go to when they need it.
Larry Schwalbeck again. So when I was growing up in the 90s, the 48th Ward was famous for its small business corridors. I remember families would come by the busloads to Bryn Mawr, to Clark, to Argyle to shop. And I think we need to bring that spirit back. I'm all about concrete plans, so this is what I would do as alderman. First of all, I would personally tour vacant shops with prospective business owners to show them that they have the backing of the Aldermanic office. I would also make sure that we have employed a small business liaison in the office who can help them with permitting and application processes and streamline those different processes. And finally, I would like to endorse what others have said, making sure we have a vacancy tax so folks who are keeping that vacant on purpose are being penalized for that. I think between all of these efforts and working closely with the Chamber of Commerce, we can do a great job to bring that spirit that I was talking about back to the 48th Ward.
As we all know, government can do a lot of things wrong. The COVID lockdown policy, like our business in particular, we lost 100K in sales. My 990 tax returns are free for anybody to look at because we're a not-for-profit. We got 30K back from the government. So and the pandemic didn't create all these vacancies. There was a lot of vacancies prior to the pandemic. We do have to get on top of what others have mentioned up here, the vacancy subsidies, which a lot of times can lead to what should rightly be called vacancy fraud. As a small, and another thing that's important about small businesses is you have to protect the ones that are here. That's why I bring up the example about the parking and loading zone, because my small business could go away if the government decides to put in bike lanes instead of parking and a loading zone. Is that it? Okay, thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Hi again, Roxanne Volkman. I live in the Bryn Mawr Historic District and I see how it has been decimated. I've lost my coffee shop, I've lost all our restaurants, I've lost my convenience store, and I'm about to lose my bank. So I want to make sure that I have new small businesses like Edgewater Candles and the traffic that they need to succeed, because if not, we will lose them too. I've already been involved in some of the solutions. My 20-year-old son, he's turning 21 today, he worked with the chambers and the alderman's office, thank you, Christina, in creating the very first Bryn Market, which brought over 2,000 shoppers into the community. He thought it was super cool because he had artists and concerts and vendors. You know what I told him? You know what was really cool, Graham? Is the fact that one of the stores that opened up today, just because you had these people here, made their first month's rent because of the traffic that came in and out of the community. So as alderman, I will work with the chambers and the business owners and people in our community who want to get involved, revitalize our business districts and our community. Thank you.
Joe Dunn. So we've heard about COVID and we've heard about the red line reconstruction disrupting businesses and causing vacancies, but safety is also a critical factor there. And it's not just working with the police on safety, we need to work with the mobile crisis response teams to help people who are on the street who are having mental illness or a mental crisis. I had a call from a friend who has a cafe on Granville earlier this week wanting to know how can we help these people, because they're coming in the store, they're disrupting the business, and they're disrupting his workers who don't want to call the police. And I think it's working together as a community. We need to work with the Chamber of Commerce, we need to work with the block clubs. Those two groups are really the stewards of the community, and the Alderman's office is here to work with you. I've done that work, working with the Andersonville Chamber of Commerce and the small businesses when I was on the Friends of Pierce board. The businesses would support the school community, and in turn the school community would support the businesses. And that's what we need to work on here in the 48th Ward to deal with the vacant storefronts. Thank you very much.
What is your proposed process for reviewing development projects and zoning requests in the ward? And how do you intend to keep developers accountable after they acquire property in the community? Again, 1 minute response time. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe Dunn. The proposed process is one that's got to be open and transparent. It's working with the community groups, like I said. It's working with the chambers of commerce and all the stakeholders in the community. As the red line reconstruction completes, I think we're going to have a tremendous opportunity for redevelopment along Broadway. And that's going to bring a lot of investment into the community, and we need to be thinking about that now and planning that process so that we don't have, so that we're not reactive further on down the road. One of the areas I work in is Humboldt Park. The 606 is a major public investment in that community, Humboldt Park and Logan Square, and it changed the community dramatically through investment in residential and retail, and has pushed people out of the community. I don't want to see that happen here. This is my neighborhood. I want to see development done for the people who live here that includes affordable housing, that includes retail, that includes market rate housing. And I think that process is one that's got to be transparent. Working with the block clubs, I want to build a central zoning committee or forum for all the block clubs to come together to review those proposals and to provide feedback to the Alderman's office. Thank you.
Helping developers is what I do every single day. It is my real-life job. I have done it every day, and I've been doing it for the last 20 years. In fact, I've gotten hundreds of thousands of dollars for hundreds of workers who earned the money from the work they've done, and the developers didn't pay them. Our community is affected by these reviews and the zoning process. I want you to be at the table with me before any decisions are made on your behalf. And if developers and contractors fail to keep their promises within the community, I will take every measure possible to hold them accountable. Thank you.
Okay, there's not really a need to expand on both those great answers. So I want to back up just a little bit. So when I said government can do a lot of things wrong, 1 million small businesses were collapsed by the lockdown policy. So that's what I meant about government can do a lot of things wrong, as well as other things. But yes, as alderman, I would seek a really big and open community process. Look how many of your people here today are showing how much you care about what happens within our ward with zoning and development and variances. So yes, I would open it up as much as possible. And I agree with Joe, we got to look ahead, not be reactive. Thanks.
This question, strikes at the heart of the greatest power the Aldermanic office wields, which is power over land use. And I'm happy to say my campaign doesn't take contributions from developers. I believe we need a rigorous, community-driven zoning process. And that looks like, one, when I get a development proposal, it goes straight on the website for open community comment. Then I proactively seek the advice of neighborhood associations and chambers of commerce to give input. And I make sure that I have a diverse, community-oriented zoning committee that will solicit feedback from community members and hold meetings. When large new developments want to come into our neighborhood, those developers need to flyer nearby neighbors to make sure everyone knows when the community meeting is and can attend and give their feedback. Thank you.
Isaac Fralick Jones, and zoning decisions must be transparent. They must be driven by our needs, by community needs, and they must be absolutely, completely free of any conflicts of interest or appearance of conflicts of interest. That's why I'm committing to solicit and to follow community feedback whenever I receive a developer request for a zoning change. I'll do that by evolving the current process we have right now in a couple of important ways. First, I'll create an online website which will allow anyone to look at every proposed development in the ward, see what the status is of that request, and give feedback, even if they can't be in attendance at a community meeting on the scheduled night. Second, when the time comes for a development decision, I will publish in writing the reasons for that decision and the results of the community feedback process. Finally, because I have no conflicts of interest when it comes to the developer community, I will have absolutely no problem holding developers accountable when they have invested in the neighborhood with a building. Thank you.
Hi, Lenny Minna-Hoppenworth. I live on Clark and Summerdale, so if I throw a rock, I could throw it at the U.S. Bank, which is across the street from me in another ward that they're proposing to put a Trader Joe's in. But I don't vote there. What I appreciate about what that alderman has done is made the process very transparent. He put it up on his website. He engaged people. He had many community meetings. And also, he, every step of the way, involved community. And that's really what this is all about. How can we build community? That is what makes us stronger, especially when we're talking about housing affordability and construction by the red line for equitable transit-oriented development. We want a balance of development with also affordable housing. And right now, when we're thinking about who is it that needs the most help, I'm thinking of people who are living in the tents. We have to find them housing first and then wrap around supportive services, which includes healthcare and treatment, not trauma. Thank you.
So as everybody else has already said, we know that there's going to be a lot of development happening, especially down Broadway, as the redevelopment happens. As everybody else said, we need to engage the community, make sure the community is driving this, not the developers. But the other things I just want to mention that we need to hold developers accountable for is having the proper number of affordable units on site in those buildings, having green space, and making sure that if they have extra land, that they are accounting for how to landscape it, hopefully use it for the community's use, pedestrian safety, and making sure that they have the right combination of retail and residential, because we need to rethink that so that Broadway doesn't just become a strip mall. Thanks.
So the process is going to be the community, clearly. We're all saying that, right? So I'm going to tell you how I'm going to do it. For most decisions that I'm going to make as alderman, there are going to be issue-specific advisory councils where I bring residents, block clubs, and community organizations together to work with me on the issues. I am not going to pretend to have all of the answers to all of the problems that we talk about, whether it be today or throughout the rest of this campaign. So I'm going to make sure that I'm bringing residents to the table to work with me on making these decisions so that all of you are also happy with the developments that we approve in our community. In terms of holding developers accountable, I'm going to make sure that I'm meeting with them frequently so that I'm having constant updates on projects so that I can relay that information to all of you. I think the reason why there's such a divide when it comes to developments is that we get a community meeting, we talk about it for a few hours, and then we don't really engage too often after that. We need residents engaged throughout the entire process so that they know what I'm doing as alderman on their behalf.
Well, I want to echo a lot of what my colleagues have said about creating a well-planned, transparent, accountable, and accessible community zoning process to make sure that folks who are unable to attend in-person meetings or Zoom meetings can actually be at the heart of what we're trying to accomplish together to make sure that new developments really do serve the needs of this community. There's some great tools that are built into the recently passed Connected Communities Ordinance, incentive structures that will help assist that affordability being built on site, like Andy said, and also that would help assist making sure that new developments are ADA accessible so we can market them to immigrant communities, seniors, and disabled people.
Andre Peliquin. As many of my colleagues here have said tonight about I think we're all in agreement on basically having a very transparent and community-oriented process. That is 100% going to be what I would do as alderman. I work in zoning practically almost every day as a residential real estate agent. I know what upzoning is, I know what downzoning is, I see the power that tool is used for by whether good or bad, and also one of the most, what I believe to be, as the alderperson, could be one of the most absolutely ways to be corrupted by any kind of proposed developments. This is a tool, Aldermanic prerogative, that you may have heard of, is one of the absolute dictatorial powers that an alderperson can wield. And that person needs to be transparent, have the community involved, and just by seeing what current Alderman Harry Osterman has done with the downzoning of the north area of Andersonville, we have seen those properties have now no longer been able to just be demolished and then built up completely, having a brick wall next to your window. So.
What organizations or departments do you believe should be included in the public safety discussion in the 48th Ward? How will you work with those groups?
Andre Peliquin. We need to work with police. And with our new, we need, as it was stated earlier, absolutely have in our commercial corridors, beat cops back on the street. We do have on the ballot February 28th, there will be a brand new office with that is police oversight, as well as who will be chosen to be the district representatives here in what is the district, the 20th district or 24th district, wherever you may be in the ward. That is a new office that is absolutely critical, and I believe that we should be able to work with our public safety officials, as well as, again, have a sense of our meetings as well here similar to the zoning process. So I appreciate the feedback too. Thank you.
The short answer is everyone. Everyone deserves to feel safe in this community, so everyone deserves to be a part of the public safety discussion. All of the institutions need to come together. Police district councils, businesses, institutions like our block clubs, our schools, community organizations, everyone who's not a member of those institutions. We all need to be able to come together via regularly established town halls and community updates to make sure that we are trying the best strategies to ensure that we are retaining our sense of social cohesion and community well-being, because that is what is going to keep us safe. That is what is going to make sure that we are moving forward here in our next, era of the 48th Ward.
So I'm going to go back to the advisory councils because that's going to be a common theme. So I'm going to have a public safety advisory council set up where I bring block clubs and residents together to inform me on the particular issues, the particular public safety issues across our ward. Our ward is not that big, but we all live in very separate communities, and so the public safety concerns that we have are distinct in our little, what I would call like hamlets. So I'm definitely going to make sure that the Public Safety Advisory Council is going to be the first council that we set up so that we can work with those groups to then actually find ways to connect with CPD on local strategies to address in each particular community. But again, at the end of the day, we need to work on anti-poverty measures at the city council level because we can put in the strategies, but if we don't get to the root causes of why we're seeing so many people, in particular our young people, committing the crimes that they're committing, then we're not going to be able to sustain the improvements for the long term.
Obviously, a lot of groups are important to public safety in the ward, but the most important one that we have to talk about is the Chicago Police Department. They are experiencing a massive manpower shortage, and we need to hire more police officers to get them on the street. We need to make sure that we recruit and retain officers from diverse backgrounds that better reflect the communities in which they serve. We need better training and better de-escalation tactics for sure, better mental health counseling for officers. We also just need to get more shooters off the street. And the only way we can do that is by hiring more detectives. We need to invest more in our crime labs, the gang witness protection programs so that people can testify against people who are terrorizing their neighborhoods. And we need to do more co-responder models where we can work with family and support services with the police department to get people a broad range of options to rehabilitate themselves after they've been incarcerated.
Hi, Lenny Hoppenworth. In terms of who we need to work with, we need to work with everyone, as Nick said earlier, and that includes Chicago Police Department, the Fire Department, our schools, our chambers of commerce, small businesses, and we need to stop criminalizing poverty. We have to get to the root causes, get people housing first, then the supportive services that they need. And far too often, we blame our young people for the rising crime, and when we really should be listening to them for the solutions. And I'm thinking of Good Kids Mad City and the Peace Book Ordinance, which is dismantling the gang database. So we need to work together, and I look forward to working with the new ECPS police district councils in the 20th district and the 24th district to make those conversations happen in our ward. Thank you.
Isaac Freilich Jones, and the conversation around public safety really does need to involve every single one of us. And it's in recognition of that fact, it's in recognition of that very fact that my approach to public safety will focus on 3 areas. First, we've got to get to the root causes of violence by investing in social services and economic development citywide, because while we have 50 wards, we live in one city and our fates are connected. Second, we've got to make sure that our built environment, our lighting, our CTA stations, our streets are designed with safety in mind so that you're never isolated, so you're never caught in the dark, so you're never feeling exposed. Third, I've said it before, I'll say it again, we've got to bring back beat patrol officers whose names we know, whose faces we recognize, who can be here for us in the community. If we do all three things, we will have as safe in Edgewater, as safe in Andersonville, and as safe in Uptown as possible.
Larry Schwabek again. So I think this is a really important question, and I think the first main stakeholders are everyone in the community. The community needs to start the conversation and be involved in public safety decision making. So as Alderman, I'll make sure that I work with the new district councilors, and I think it's critical that we elect someone who worked on ACPS, who understands this new model and wants to implement it on day one, to engage the community and make sure we're thinking about how we can prevent crime in the first place. We also need to elect someone who's comfortable talking with the Chicago Police Department and District 20 and 24 leadership. Someone who's both comfortable asking for assistance and holding them accountable to make sure that everyone in our community is safe. And I'll be sure to be that leader. And finally, we need someone who will engage social service providers. Domestic violence is heavily correlated with gun violence in the city of Chicago. And until we face that epidemic and actually take serious the providers who work with survivors, we won't be able to get our grip on this problem. Thank you.
Yep, echo. The police, block clubs, community groups, we need to get going with this treatment, not trauma coalition of social workers, healthcare workers. There's plenty that we can do. I think we also need to get honest about what a disaster the drug war and mass incarceration was and its effects on, its ripples out into time right now. There's a lot to do. Right now, the #1 killer of adults aged 18 to 49 is fentanyl. And they're called overdose deaths, but in reality, a lot of times it's because this fentanyl has become so cheap and it's sliced into everything by people who are not pharmacists that it's killing people who took one pill one time. So these are all things about public safety and public health that we have to get on top of. Thanks.
Roxanne again. Public safety is my #1 priority. If you want to be involved, then I want you to be at the table with me. I will work with CPD, smarter hiring, better training, and fewer accountability. I know that right now none of us feel safe. I have been personally affected. My son, who's 21, was held up at gunpoint over the summer. There was a gun to his head, red dots on his chest, and a revolver under his chin. I got that call that no parent wanted. Could have been much worse. I want to make it much better. I had the choice at that point to give up on Chicago or fight for my family and my community. And guess what my choice was? I'm fighting for my family and I'm fighting for your family too. We need to work with the police, and I want the return of neighborhood beat cops like my colleagues have said, and we also have to increase mental health resources, again, both for the community as well as our officers. Thank you.
Hi, Joe Dunn. Absolutely, we all need to be engaged in public safety. It's an issue for all of us. We've heard the list: block clubs, schools, chambers of commerce, residents, police, social service providers. Everybody needs to be part of the solution. The question is, how do we engage? How do we engage the community? And I think we have to be proactive on that. We need more events. We absolutely need beat cops, but it can't be their sole responsibility because it's our responsibility. We need more things like positive loitering events. We need more nights like Caps Night Out. I've been out here to Swift School in the parking lot for Caps Night Out. We don't get a big crowd. We need more people to do things like that. National Night Out's another big event. We need to be doing things like that. We need to be supporting organizations like Becoming a Man that provide other alternatives for our youth. We need to be supporting this facility right here for after-school programming to keep kids off the street and give them something positive to do. And we need to do that together as a community. Thank you.
What is your plan to improve the quality of life for unhoused people in our community? 1 minute, starting with Andre.
Andre Peliquin. I currently live at the Lawrence Avenue as well as Marine Drive section of our ward. Every day there are people, our neighbors, living under the viaduct and the underpass at Lawrence. Foster as well. We currently, here at the city level, we have a CHA, Chicago Housing Authority, that currently has 1,000 plus units that are currently vacant, that go unused daily, some of them for years on end, that only need minor touch-ups. This is a travesty. We need to keep these officials at the city level accountable and get those into production. Yes, that's only 1,000 units, but that can have individuals as well as families at least get them into homes. Our current homeless population is roughly 55,000. That could be its own ward right now. We do need funding from the county level to the city level as well as the state level in order to basically bring people together and this is a problem nationally. It's going to take years to fix, but we do need to focus on this. These people are our neighbors.
As I mentioned before, I've worked with mutual aid groups in the community to deliver groceries and other resources and get cash into the hands of unhoused people so they could get a hotel room for a night during the worst of the polar vortex. And I saw what a dedicated group of volunteers could accomplish together, but I also saw the limitations of being able to do that without state investment. So that's why I support Bring Chicago Home, which would restructure the real estate transfer tax to provide a dedicated revenue stream, roughly $168 million every single year, to build permanent supportive housing for our homeless neighbors. That includes wraparound social support services like mental health services, harm reduction for drug addiction, and domestic violence prevention programs. That is why I support Bring Chicago Home. Thanks.
So I'm just going to start by saying that this is water, so if you see me drinking this, I did not bring a can of beer to the forum. Just wanted to say that before I started. Similar to Nick, I also support Bring Chicago Home ordinance. We need a revenue stream that is going to be solely dedicated to helping our neighbors who are unhoused. We can't keep relying on funding that's up 1 year, down another year, up 1 year, down another year, down for 2 more years, right? So we need a dedicated revenue stream. In my office, I'm going to have a social worker on staff. I was raised by a licensed clinical social worker. My mom has done this type of work, working with the unhoused, so I know the positive impacts that social workers can have. So I'm going to make sure that I have a social worker on staff who's going to be able to work with neighbors in our community who are unhoused, so that I'm just not, putting people off to a different agency or a different office, but being able to find the help for our neighbors within my office. So that's going to be like one of the first hires that I make is a social worker on my staff.
So I'm Andy Peters, and I'm the owner of True North Cafe. And one of the interesting things when you own a small business in the neighborhood is you get to meet a lot of, pretty much all of the people who are living in the neighborhood unhoused. And you learn that the reasons that they're unhoused are very different. They're there for all sorts of reasons. Many reasons that are not their fault at all. To address it, first of all, the immediate thing is to make them housed. We need more SRO options out there, more emergency shelters for people who are unhoused when they need it, and then you need to address the root causes. A lot of the times it involves mental health and drug treatment programs, and those are things that as a city we just have to spend more money on and follow the data on what works.
Improving the quality of life for unhoused people in our community will require all of us to put housing first and then provide wraparound services after that. And to do that, we need a permanent revenue stream we need to pass Bring Chicago Home, increase the real estate transfer tax, because we do have federal funding now to provide some relief, but this isn't a first-time thing. People have been living in tents for a long time in our city. We are now in an accelerated moment, and we need accelerated solutions to support organizations who are doing the work to help people immediately, like Care for Real. Thank you for everybody who has volunteered in that organization and propped that up, and thank you for ECRA for putting that group together and making it strong today, because we have needed it. Thank you for 48th Ward Neighbors for Justice. I was a part of that group also, and I really was inspired by all the mutual aid effort that went into that group during the pandemic. How can we help people improve quality of life? If they're unhoused, we need to house them. Thank you.
So some important research from the Chicago Coalition for the Homeless came out earlier this year, and what they found was that in the most recent year for which data was available, about 15,000 of our neighbors were living in sheltered or unsheltered housing, or unsheltered environments. They were living outside. But about 50,000 of our neighbors, the same number that are in the 48th Ward, were doubling up. They didn't have a home of their own, but they were couch surfing from place to place without a place to go. And any strategy that we have for lack of housing has to attack both those categories. So we need rapid rehousing with social services for the folks who are in shelters and the folks who are living outside. But we also need to make additional services available to those who are doubling up, so we can help them get back on their feet before they end up living outdoors. If we don't get both of those done, we will not make progress on this problem.
Hi everyone, Larry Schwabek again. So, since the pandemic, we've seen a 13% increase in the number of unhoused folks in the city of Chicago. And for some of us, we see that statistic every day, and other members of our community feel that statistic. And so I think any reasonable plan has to begin, as others have said, with passing Bring Chicago Home to create an annual revenue source for our unhoused neighbors to have permanent supportive housing. But we also have to dig deeper, and as Isaac brought up, we need to think about how we're preventing folks who are at risk of becoming unhoused from falling into that condition. So we need to maintain our affordability standards, ensuring that every large development has at least 20% of their units on-site affordable. We also need to put more money aside in the city of Chicago to maintain SROs, because they're a critical source of affordable housing. And finally, we need to send an alderman to city council who will expand the accessory dwelling units ordinance to allow landlords to create a larger natural stock of affordability. Thank you.
Again, echo. I was born on a farm and I grew up rural, so a lot of times my thinking is not about spending millions and millions of dollars, but trying to start with the old saying, an ounce of prevention is a pound of cure. So there's a lot of things that have to be recognized and reorganized about mental health. A good start would be reopening the mental health hospitals where people can get wraparound services, but also just start with the most basic, the testing blood levels for nutrient deficiencies and hormone levels, because sometimes these things get misdiagnosed and then they get prescribed psych drugs, and then years later they've got side effects from the psych drugs. And I've had family members and friends in these kind of conditions. So I like all that stuff and helping SRO as well. Thanks a lot.
So, my plan right now, I'm going to actually invite all of you to be a part of my plan today. And by doing that, what I'm talking about is something called the point-in-time count. The point-in-time count is where federal agencies come in, work with the cities, organizations that help the homeless, and volunteers like you to count how many homeless people are on the streets and in shelters at a single point in time. When is that going to happen? It's happening January 26th. Make sure that's right, yes. Sorry, I need glasses. It's happening next Thursday, and it's happening from 9 o'clock at night to 3 o'clock in the morning. The The issue about this is in 2020, we counted, through the point of time count, 5,390 people as being homeless. As a result, that's how much funding we got. The reality is the Chicago Coalition on the Housing said that it was 10 times as much people that were homeless in our communities. That means that we have lost so much funding. I bring to you experience to make sure that we get all of the funding that we deserve to serve our community, but also to serve the community that is greatest in need. For more information about this, it'll be on my Twitter account, and I'll have some handouts here. Thank you.
Joe Dunn. Housing is a human right. I believe that, and I believe that nobody should be living in the parks. I've developed permanent supportive housing. There's 400 units of permanent supportive housing under construction right now at Grand in Chicago, in the old Lawson House YMCA. I put the financing together for that, and let me tell you, I started working on that project in 2012. It'll be delivered later this year. It takes a long time to build new housing for people who need it. What we need is solutions right now. The city has ARPA dollars they haven't spent. They need to get that money out the door to provide social services to people, to support the mobile response teams, the mobile crisis response teams that are there to help people in the parks and under the viaducts and who need that help. And we need to be looking at immediate solutions like supporting rental subsidies. We need to support the Chicago Low-Income Housing Trust Fund, which provides a rental subsidy to get people into the market rate properties. And we need new sources of federal Section 8 housing subsidies so that we can also utilize the market rate housing to support people who need the housing right now. Thank you.
How would you balance vehicle traffic calming tactics with the needs of businesses, cyclists, and pedestrians? 1 minute. We're going to start with Joe.
Joe Dunn again. So how do you balance that? I think it's a great question, and you have to do it block by block because every block is different. We have streets that need to serve cars and pedestrians and bicyclists, and critically the businesses that are on those streets. I love shopping in Andersonville. I think probably everybody here loves shopping in Andersonville. Those businesses need to receive deliveries. We have a tremendous number of Amazon trucks coming through the neighborhood. We need to be coordinating so that as we're re-envisioning our streets and we're making them safer for pedestrians and for bicyclists, that we're planning for the deliveries that support the businesses. If you can't get a delivery truck in that's going to provide what's needed to the businesses aren't going to succeed. And the same thing goes for the bicycle lanes on our residential streets. There's a lot of, the delivery trucks create, I think, in my opinion, a tremendous number of safety concerns throughout the city, and that's what needs to be part of our planning on a block-by-block basis for how we re-envision the streets. Thank you.
Hi, Roxanne. I'm going to balance our traffic ecosystem by listening to the experts who create the efficient transit pathways and also the community and the bicyclists that use them from our community. It's not going to be an easy task, and I know that there's a lot of danger out there. I know because my son was doored last year. Actually, this year, at the beginning of this year. Chicago now ranks #1 in traffic congestion. We have to be smart and innovative to get you home safely and with fewer traffic jams, but I will also pay very special attention to areas like Sheridan Road and Ridge Avenue. Trying to cross those areas from one side of the street to the other should not be an episode of Survivor. And so I will be there with you and I will listen to you. Thank you.
This one is pretty easy for me because anybody who knows our store knows that we create instant traffic calming. And if that were opened up for all small businesses, I've come to discover that many other small businesses would like to rent the sidewalk just like the same way street cafes and restaurants do. Dice Dojo said they'd like to have tables out there so guys could sit and play chess. Some of the, like Sophie and Justine said they'd like to be able to have a rack of dresses out there. So that would be a win-win-win-win. We could let the small businesses rent the sidewalk, build their own corrals, just like the street cafes do, and the city collects more revenue, everything is more lively, it's a little slower because when people drive by a garage sale or yard sale, they slow down. And also, I just want to say quick that the first year when I was in business and they started the sidewalk sale for the neighborhood and garage sales, I thought we were going to take a hit in business. It was one of our best days of the year, and it continues to be every year. So why can't we do more of that for small business? Open it up year round.
Larry Schwabek again. So traffic calming, it's incredibly important. You know, in the last year, we've lost multiple young children to preventable accidents on our streets. And what we realized from that experience is that painted bike lanes aren't doing enough work. So the question is, how can we bring stakeholders together, including the Chambers of Commerce, including experts from CDOT and IDOT, to make sure that we have real safe bikeways on our streets? You know, cities like Minneapolis and Portland have done this. They've been able to integrate bike lanes in a way where businesses thrive and bikers are safe. I think we can do that here. I'll also say that we need to do more for pedestrian safety, and I will work with our state legislatures to ensure that we put pedestrian safety features on major crosswalks like Broadway and Sheridan. And we need to bring in, you know, raised crosswalks in some of those areas, put in pedestrian islands, and ensure that everyone from a young age to seniors in our community can safely cross our streets and move about. Thank you.
So the key here is Isaac Freilich Jones, and the key here is to focus on the need for coexistence. We need to work to ensure safety for all modes of transportation, pedestrians, bicyclists, folks in cars, and we need to do it in a way that makes sure we continue to be increasingly ADA accessible. At the same time, we need to consider the needs of local businesses, in particular the need for parking nearby for customers, as well as logistical support. And I'm convinced that at the end of the day, there really is no tension at all between these ideas if we come together in a respectful way, communicate, and work towards the technical solutions that we know are out there. If we do that, we can have calm streets, successful businesses, and access for all.
Yes, children are dying because there are no protected bike lanes and trucks are standing in the bike lanes. These painted bike lanes don't work, but also we need to find ways that we can sustain small businesses because we do live in a car-centric world. We need to come up with creative solutions, including how can we time Amazon delivery trucks so that it is a little bit more predictable and work together. We also have to listen to exactly what others are saying. I would like to give a round of applause for everybody because you're fantastic and the ideas that are coming up are exactly what we need. So I would love to give everybody just a round of applause. I love this process to bring up all of these ideas. This is what we need to do between every election is to bring up the good ideas and coalesce them and actually get them done. So thank you for everybody's ideas. Protected bike lanes and also creative ideas so that we can, exactly what Isaac is saying, coexist. We love the density of this ward and we need to work together.
We got to listen to the neighborhoods, and the areas that I just know are the biggest problems as far as I see it are Ridge Avenue, very dangerous. Every time I drive down it, I'm scared. That's related to the big issue with a lot of traffic going down Ridge Avenue are heading to and from Lakeshore Drive, the terminus. At that point, doesn't leave people with many great options. We need to balance the need for better traffic flow while also maintaining and improving neighborhood living. In the end, the goal needs to be accessibility for people with disabilities, environmentally friendly traffic patterns, and making sure it's safe for motorists, cyclists, and pedestrians alike. Thanks.
I'm going to echo what Andy said about Ridge Avenue. Basically, Ridge and Wayne, it's almost like impossible to cross the street there. So we're definitely going to work to put in a traffic light there so that pedestrians can actually cross without having to just jump in front of traffic. Generally speaking, I think we need to pedestrianize our communities a little bit more, right? I think the more that we pedestrianize our communities, the more we feel safe to be in our communities, the less that we're going to rely on our personal vehicles to get around. So a good example, and I'm a bit biased, Andre is probably a bit biased too, because we live in the same building. The shared street concept on Argyle, I think, is something that we should be replicating along our east-west commercial corridors. If you go to Argyle, there's plenty of space for delivery trucks to pull over to the side. We see businesses who are able to, in the summer, able to have customers eating outside, right? So I think like that's a good concept that we should be replicating because I think that's also going to add to the economic development of our communities as well.
As many people have already said, we often don't balance all of these competing needs. You know, Argyle is a place where we do, but Clark Street, north of Andersonville, the people who bike aren't being served, people who drive, businesses, pedestrians aren't being served by that road design. You know, at the same time, we also know that a majority of the ward walks, rolls, bikes, or takes public transportation as their primary mode. And we're just not being served right now. You know, I really believe in creating public parks and walkable thoroughfares where neighbors can congregate together, where children and families and disabled folks and everyone can gather. But public transportation has to be at the heart of that. We have to make sure we have a rich, robust, and efficient public transportation network, and to make sure we're not constantly being ghosted by the buses.
Second your public transportation there. Absolutely. Everything in our ward is intertwined. So when you're talking, I agree with Isaac that I don't believe there to be a dichotomy between just business or biking or safety or pedestrians. It is proven that when there's more pedestrianization of our streets, there are more local businesses that come in that do better business, that have a plaza in front of it. The Catalpa Plaza that will be coming in shortly is going to be a great host location for community meetings, pop-up events, farmers markets. That'll be closed off. I have absolutely signed on to what, if many of you may have heard, the Chicago Bike Grid Now. This is putting 10% of our entire city streets 450 miles at 10 miles per hour. It is proven fact that we will, if you slow down traffic, you will have less deaths. You will also have better quality public transportation and biking as well. And that's why I'm for slowing down Broadway with the diet and having one lane in each direction.
How would you address concerns about the reliability, ridership, safety, and cleanliness challenges on mass transit in this ward? We're going to start with Joe again.
And just so you know, this is our final question of the day.
Sure. So I think everything with the CTA right now starts with safety. If we want this, if we want the CTA to be safer and cleaner and more reliable, we really have to start with safety because people don't feel safe riding the trains. People don't feel safe on the platforms. The CTA reliability issues come back to a staffing issue. The CTA is having trouble hiring people because their staff doesn't feel safe. So if we're going to address this and try and make a more reliable system, we got to start with safety. I think that starts with bringing conductors back on the trains. The trains right now, you have them here and you have empty cars that nobody knows what's going on in them. We need eyes on the cars. We need conductors there. We need security at the stations to make sure that ridership can be safe as they go about their business. And that's really, I think, the key to bringing back the CTA. We'll bring back ridership when people feel safe on the trains. Thank you.
So I take the CTA, not every day, but almost every day downtown. How many of you here ride the CTA? How many of you here feel safe on the CTA? Oh, good for you guys. I'm riding on your CTAs, your buses and your trains. The truth is the CTA owes us more answers. I want to know what their plans are for a safer, cleaner experience and making sure that transportation arrives on time. If I can look at a ride-share app and know exactly where my driver is at any given point in time, we should have apps that are provided by the CTA that does the exact same thing. I will work with them to improve those plans, but I will also hold them accountable for the results. These impacts affect all of the residents in the ward and actually throughout the entire city. Thank you.
Roxanne just stepped on my answer. She had brought that up at one of our last forums, and I think that's an amazing, excellent idea. Thanks again, Roxanne. About the tracker. If it can work for Uber and Lyft, why can't we all have it for CTA? Yes, I completely concur with Joe. We need officers, we need eyes, we need conductors, the whole experience. I have a young guy that was working his community service for us, and he had used the blue line for the first time in 2 years and took it to the red line to come home up here on the north side, and he got jumped while waiting at the red line by 6 youths, started kicking him, took his bag. We can't have a city like this. I mean, this has got to stop. So, thank you.
Hi, Larry Schwabek again. So, I think that this issue starts with making sure we have reliable transit service so that folks actually want to take the CTA and there's other people on the train when we ride it. We need to send someone to City Hall who's going to hold the CTA accountable to make improvements to their systems, to address staffing shortages head on, and that right now isn't happening. We also can use programs like a free rider targeted program for seniors and for young students like Boston has to encourage people to get back on the CTA. Then, to augment those different programs, we can bring back CTA ambassadors, make sure that there's someone enforcing rules on the CTA, and work to ensure that folks feel like this is a reliable, safe, and efficient way to transit themselves. So, thank you.
I was Isaac Frelick Jones. I was born here in the city of Chicago. I have lived here for decades of my life, and I have never owned a car. So it's fair to say that the health of the CTA is as important to me as it is to the 40% of us who use it to commute every single day. And the solution is really to hold our current leadership accountable for doing their jobs, because they have known for years about ghost buses and inaccurate schedules and have done nothing. They have known for years that safety and cleanliness is a problem, and they have known for years about staff shortages that make it impossible to run the system. And if you've been watching the news, you know that their only solution was an announcement last week that they are cutting services, including on the 151 and the 147 and many other routes in our neighborhood. And so my message is simple: if current leadership isn't able to get the job done, it's time to find new leadership that can.
We need to hold CTA leadership accountable, absolutely. And as the red line reconstruction is happening for the next few years, we need the buses to work for us. If we want Connected Communities Ordinance to fulfill what it needs to do, which is connect us to jobs and working class people, to appointments and art and all the amenities of living in Chicago, we need our public transit system to work for us. A social worker stopped me the other day and he said, "Lenny, we are working overtime, we're working as hard as we can trying to house people, but the shelters are full. We need to get people into permanent housing." And so to me, he said, it makes sense that people have found a home on the trains. We need to address the root causes of our issues and stop criminalizing poor people. Thank you.
So we focus a lot on ghost trains, but another big problem is the opposite of a ghost train. It's bunching. When a train doesn't come or a bus doesn't come for 20 minutes or whatever, and then 3 come at once. That happens all the time. The reason that annoys me so much is that it disproves all of the excuses that the CTA makes for there being ghost trains, not having enough staff and things like that. Well, if you don't have enough staff, why are there 3 trains now coming at once? It seems just that they're not efficient, not that it's necessarily a staffing issue. In terms of safety on the CTA, they signed a $70 million contract and a $30 million contract for private unarmed security last year. I agree on the CTA, it's probably not something we need to criminalize being unhoused and traveling on the CTA. They had like a $2 million agreement with the Department of Family and Support Services to have social workers go out on the trains, meet people, explain to them the services and hook them up with the providers that they may need. I think that's what we should be spending $100 million on because it's a mental health and various issues like that. We should not criminalize it.
So I totally agree with Isaac. I also don't own a car. So I feel very fortunate that the building that I live in on Marine, we have three express buses that go downtown. So I rely on that every day. Rather than echo what everyone's saying, let's say like, we need more money, right? All of this is gonna cost more money, so where are we gonna get the money for this? So my intention is to work with colleagues who I've worked with. I work in state government now, so I intend on working with federal partners to ensure that Chicago is getting the necessary funding so that we can pay for all of the great things that everyone's talking about, because we can talk about it, but if we don't have the funding, then we won't be able to get more conductors. We won't be able to get faster buses or electric buses. We won't be able to really improve on the CTA without more funding from the federal government.
I believe that public transportation is key to a thriving city. And I believe that the CTA needs to work with the city council to hire more union workers. Workers say they want increased pay and decreased time to progress to a higher pay. Operators also say that they are taking on too much responsibility related to safety and cleanliness of trains and buses. Other cities like San Francisco are experimenting with unarmed transit ambassadors, and the CTA did in the 90s have de-escalation programs that they taught to bus operators, and union leadership say that they support bringing that back. We have to remember that public transit extends well beyond the boundaries of the 48th Ward, and this is the kind of city that we all deserve, the one where we're all able to move efficiently and safely for free.
A lot's been said already, and I'm echoing many of you here tonight. I use the 147 Express bus to get downtown daily. Where else in the world can you get anywhere for $2.50? I'm originally from San Francisco, California myself. So when I took the train, it was at minimum $10 just to get from one town to the next. There's a reason I live here in a dense urban environment and not Schaumburg, is that I love my CTA, whether it's a train downtown, a quick couple stops down to Wrigley when you want to go see a Cubs game. Those need to be reliable again. Those need to be safe again. As it was said earlier, there's $100 million that was spent on private security and $50 or whatnot. That is, and most of these folks are trained at the minimum level. That needs to be reinvested, and as it was said earlier, either a conductor or a actual CPD officer that is going through trains, being just a presence there is an opportunity to reduce crime as well as any of the smaller crimes as well on the trains and buses. So this needs to be reinvested in, and I echo many of you here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Officer. Next, we are now going to hear folks' closing arguments. You have 1 minute. Start with Andre.
Thank you. I have been a resident, again, of Edgewater for 7 years as a renter, 2 years as a proud condo owner now along the lakefront. Won't trade the view for anything. Our neighborhoods are all intertwined. We're all up here for various reasons tonight, but one reason that unites us all is we care about our neighborhoods. We care about our ward, and it proves the fact that you all are here today as well because you care. There are other wards in our city that get minimal representation from their aldermen, that get minimal representation or participation at the community level. This is great. I'm here again to be a pragmatic voice of progressivism, similar as well as what 80% of the job here at the city council level is ward and constituent services. Whether it's calling the alderman's office for a down tree, a broken sidewalk, building plumbing issues in your building, holding agencies accountable and getting things done. That's why I want to be the next alderperson, and that's why I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Hi everyone, thanks for being here. Nick Ward again. I believe that the next alderperson of the 48th Ward needs to be an advocate for and a collaborator with communities of color, LGBTQ communities, seniors, and disabled people. And I believe that I am singularly positioned to make sure that we are getting resources to all of those groups. I've been endorsed by the Illinois Nurses Association, the Asian American Midwest Progressives, and the Chicago Teachers Union, because that reflects my commitment to diverse, multiracial coalition building. Ultimately, we need to be able to do this work together. So thank you so much for being here. I'm so grateful for your time.
So I'll tell you why I'm running again, and then I'll give you 3 reasons why I hope to earn your vote. So again, my name is Nasir Faulkner, running for alderman to build on our community strengths, to bring it back to basics approach to constituent services. So 3 particular reasons why I'd like to earn your vote. One is I am the youngest candidate here, so I think that I can bring a new and fresh perspective to city government. We cannot keep electing the same type of people, getting the same results, and then hoping that something is going to change in our politics and in our government. 2, although I am the youngest candidate, this year in March, I will have 6 years of experience in state government at the executive branch level. We need to have someone who is going to be ready on day 1 to be the alderman. We need someone who's going to be able to navigate through city bureaucracy so that we can have the best ward services possible. And then 3rd, which is most importantly to myself, is that the folks that are struggling in our community right now, I can relate to those people, because when we're talking about not being able to afford rent, when we're talking about parents that have to work multiple jobs in order to make it, that's what I lived through. So I'm going to be able to connect to the people who need our help the most. So if you're ready for a ward that continues to lead on the issues, a ward where we are inclusive of all of our neighbors, join me and let's keep building a community that we love to call home.
I'm Andy Peters. I'm the owner of True North Cafe. I've opened 3 businesses in the city of Chicago, as well as worked on the city council team, the mayor's office. This knowledge of how people get tripped up while opening a small business, and also some of the solutions the city could do to make it easier, is why I'm running for alderman. It's why I was appointed in 2018 to the Mayor's Small Business Advisory Council to help advise on things to make it easier for entrepreneurs and artists to get started in the city of Chicago. I'll just address my sign. It says, one nerdy Democrat for alderperson. People always ask about that. Why nerdy? To me, it's because I at least try to be thoughtful, inclusive, and data-driven, and very hardworking. And so that's why I'm asking for a vote on February 28th. Thanks.
Hi, Lenny Manah, Hoppenworth for 48th Ward Alderwoman. February 28th is election day, and as you can imagine, my name will be the longest on the ballot. I'm a 24-year resident of this ward. I have deep roots. I love living here. I love all the amenities here, and as Alderwoman, I will be a good steward of this land. Alongside that, DEI, or diversity, equity, and inclusion, is not just a checkbox for me, it is my life. I am a daughter of Filipino immigrants, a queer woman of color, and I will fight for equity for all in City Council. Thank you.
Let me begin by thanking our sponsors, our moderators, and most of all, each and every one of you for coming out today and being here. My name is Isaac Freilich Jones, and I'm running for alderperson to use my roots right here on the far north side. My record of service as a volunteer and assistant Illinois Attorney General to fight for public safety, for housing affordability, for revitalized commercial corridors, and for a neighborhood that has its fair share of resources for our schools, for our parks, and for everything that makes this community work. But to do that in the context of a changing city, we need to go beyond the playbook we've used in the past. We need new leadership that will go to bat for every part of our ward in all its diversity. As an assistant Illinois Attorney General, I've kept Illinois safe by keeping dangerous firearms off of the streets and investigated misuse of government funds. I'll take that same determination to my work as alderperson. So if you believe, as I do, in independent, progressive leadership, if you sense, as I do, that our future can be even brighter than our past, but if you know, as I do, that we need new solutions for new problems, then I'm asking you to join me on February 28th with your vote. Thank you.
Hi everyone, Larry Schwabek again. I first visited this community in 2011 when I was finishing my Northwestern undergraduate education, and I fell in love with it instantly. And that's why I wanted to move here. I think it's one of the greatest areas in the city of Chicago. Aldermanic elections can sometimes become about constituent services and responsiveness, which are all really important. I've worked in a congressional office, I've done constituent services. But what we've seen the last 4 years with our current mayor is that if we don't pay attention to what's going on in City Hall, our community will also suffer. Public safety, lead pipe replacement, CTA issues, these all come from the city down. We need to send a leader to City Hall who's going to hold our government accountable and who's going to stand up for this community. I'm that leader, and if you support this vision, please join me on February 28th. Thank you.
I'm Brian Hogg, and as many of you have figured out, I'm pretty heterodox. I grew up rural, and I like a lot of moonshot ideas, like the last 4 miles. I think that would solve a lot of problems. As the lake levels rose just a few years back, we were obviously everybody living in high rises felt pretty threatened, and their insurance went up. We could have all that new parkland. We could build a service road on the east side of all the high rises, which would really help with all the traffic congestion. And if you would please go to my website, you're going to see more big ideas that I'm running on. And it would be my honor to serve the 48th Ward in the City Council of Chicago. Okay, thanks.
So when I decided that I was going to run, I had a whole lot of questions from a lot of my friends. Are you crazy? What are you doing? They're going to bare your soul, you're going to have to bare your soul, and you're going to get, canceled. And I wasn't. I have to tell you that this has been the most rewarding experience and opportunity of my entire life. This has been amazing, not just because of the community and all of you here today, but because of all of my colleagues sitting here at this table. Many of the questions today talked about who are you going to have at the table with you, what special organizations are you going to have, what kind of industry groups or businesses or government agencies. I'm going to have all of them at the table, but you know what? I would be remiss if I didn't have each and every one of my colleagues and my friends and my neighbors at the table with me too, also, because that way they solve all of our problems. I hope that today I was able to show you that I am the most experienced and the most qualified to be the 40th Ward Alderman and bring that experience to share with you and bring you up. I ask for you to share your feedback. I invite you to come in with your questions, and most of all, I ask you each for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe Dunn. I started today talking about passion. What I'd like to talk about now is commitment and experience. I'm committed to the 48th Ward. I've lived that commitment through my volunteership over the years, most recently with the work I've done at Pierce Elementary. I have the experience to do the job. I've spent almost the last 20 years developing affordable housing across the city, working in communities, as I mentioned, from the south side to the west side to right here in Edgewater. And it's that commitment and that experience. It's why I'm endorsed by Heather Staines. It's why I'm endorsed by Mary Ann Smith. It's why the Chicago Federation of Labor has endorsed me, and it's why Alderman Harry Osterman has endorsed me. I'll commit, as your next alderman, I will commit to working collaboratively with the community to address public safety, to address affordability in the ward, to support our schools, and to bring new economic development opportunities to our business districts. I hope to have your support on February 28th, and I appreciate you all coming out. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. We really appreciate all of the alderperson candidates for taking their time, for putting themselves out there. I first would like to thank the Park District for hosting us here at Broadway Armory tonight, the second week on the job. I thank you so much for your commitment